Alright, tonight let's talk about one of the scariest parts of my personality, and I'm not talking about anything split personality related. This is just a deep character flaw, and it's me in competitive mode because yeah, I'm one of those people. And I've been meaning to make this video for ages, but what's finally got me to do it is in Sydney at the moment, we're in lockdown, and Mum set up a whiteboard with for us to guess how many case numbers they're going to announce every day. And for the most part, I've boycotted it. And one of the reasons is the sort of competitive streak, and that's to do with trying to win, I think, mainly. And I mean, there's other things about this that I don't like, but I think mainly the competitive thing is what I was thinking about. So, yeah, let's talk about that. And I mean, maybe there are other reasons that people like me get super competitive, but I think the main thing is just like the whole point of a lot of competitions is to win. Really, I mean, I guess every now and then someone comes along and like, oh, we're just doing this for fun. But like, if there's a goal, aren't you meant to try and win? I don't know. I just struggle to sort of sit back and not to do my best to try and win. Like, that's the point of it. I don't know. If that makes sense, like just I struggle to see competitions as fun. I know some people can do it. I just struggle. And yeah, I don't know how long. I've probably had this problem forever because, like, the whole childhood playing Monopoly kind of thing, and trying really hard to win that, and, like, just willing the dice to do the thing. Which it's with competitive stuff, it's worse when there's luck involved because then you can't use skill and you have to rely on some stupid dice or, unpredictable factors. And maybe the stress of that for someone like me who likes to, like, really get into details and understand things, maybe at a deeper level. I think, like, trying to guess shit just doesn't work for me. And maybe that's why it's hard for me to make decisions sometimes, like about my opinions and stuff, because I want to know every tiny little detail. So it might be that plus the trying to win thing. But yeah, no, my brother's really into that Brooklyn Nine-Nine show, and there's this episode where Boyle, I think they're playing squash or something, and he's asked to play, and he tries not to go into that competitive mode, but they're not winning, so then I think, is it Holt asks him to go into competitive mode, and, like, they win, but they, like, upset everyone in the process, and yeah. I can't enjoy games and so on. And I mean, the goal of these things, like, there's a way to win and you're supposed to try to win, but I guess the point of games is to have fun, but I don't have fun because that winning component is there. So yeah, I just avoid stuff. Now, I did play Magic the Gathering at one of those, shops where they set up the competitions. I also, like, I did Pokemon a long time ago and had no idea what I was getting into in that. I thought I'd meet people I could relate to, but no, they were just all these hyper nerds, and yeah. I also played a little bit of Yu-Gi-Oh! Here and there. One was like one of those launch events for a new set of cards. And then yeah, that was such a long time ago I barely remember it. But at this proper, like, shop where they organize regular events, by the time I did Yu-Gi-Oh! There, it had moved on to, like, those cards with the black and the white backgrounds, and I just no, this is not the game that I knew. So yeah, no, I played Magic the Gathering. That might have been when I was living with my ex. It was one of the only ways to really connect with him. It was just like, great, I move in and now, like, what, I just sit here on a shelf? So yeah, no, I tried playing Magic the Gathering. I think we had tried playing earlier because I tried to introduce him to Yu-Gi-Oh! And he's like, oh, let's play this Magic game, and spent way too much money on it. But yeah, anyway, no, getting off topic. At this shop, right, it seeing that more competitive environment, because, like, Magic the Gathering has this full-on, and they're, like, actual adults instead of kids. The kids play Yu-Gi-Oh! And the adults play Magic. It didn't take me long to figure out that if you wanted to win this game, you need to have a lot of money to be able to buy all the damn cards instead of or if you rely on buying packets, you got to buy a lot of them to get anything good in it. And then also, you need to be, like, one of those obsessive nerds like I saw at the Pokemon place. and just get so deep into it, like with all these strategies, and then everyone uses the same boring strategy. I'm like, I don't find that fun. So I did try when we were doing that to just, make joke decks and not take it too seriously. And, obviously you lose easily doing that. But the best one I had is I made a Death Touch rat indestructible, and it was carrying a World Slayer, and this one guy I was playing against didn't realize what would happen if he let me actually hit him for his life points, or whatever you call them in Magic, I've forgotten. And so I wiped out all the lands and all the creatures except for my one indestructible rat with World Slayer. And I think it could only do like 1 damage after everything got wiped out, and it took him a while to build things up, and eventually I lost anyway, because what can you do with like one little rat that can only do 1 damage at a time? But the guy was just so traumatized from having the whole thing wiped out that every time I saw him, like every week after that, he'd bring it up, like having this sort of PTSD moment that I destroyed all his cards in one blow. Yeah, I don't remember all the details of how I actually pulled that off, but that's probably the only real fun I had, making a joke deck and traumatizing some nerd. Otherwise, it's just like you spend ages trying to come up with a deck that might be kind of amusing, and they never work because you got to draw the right cards to, get the novelty factor of it going. And it's just not fun. And also, by doing that and not putting in the effort, the games aren't interesting. They don't last very long because you're trying to build something ridiculous. Yeah, it's just, and it's also like, what's the point if you're not actually trying? Why are you here? Yeah, wait, I think the times that were more successful for Magic the Gathering was when they do those, like, you have the packets. I forget what they're called. Are they called draws, or I don't know, you hand around packets and everyone opens up a packet, and so you don't have those pre-constructed decks where you have to spend hundreds of dollars to get the good cards, and you sort of make a deck out of, you pass it along and everyone takes a card and then pass the pile along, and you sort of build a thing like that. The playing field is much more even there, and we did actually win a few times, but I just... then you're relying on that luck factor again, and yeah, I don't know. It didn't really appeal to me long term. Yeah, so like I've tried the trying to chill out with Magic the Gathering, but it just, yeah, once that relationship was over, I think I left him with all the garbage cards and just took the ones that I liked the most, and yeah. So that was my Magic the Gathering thing. What else have I done? So, I think since that relationship, I probably didn't play many games in general. I think at some point I figured out competition just doesn't sit well with me. Because yeah, that was pretty intense. Anyway, so I've spent like ages avoiding games. Oh no, there was one guy I dated who liked holding like games nights, and they did one on like New Year's Eve, and I played a little bit, but it's just like I can't get out of that mode. Either I am full on competitive, or I just don't give a fuck, and why am I there? And I think I left early. I don't remember if there was a particular reason for me leaving early, but like, hanging out with a bunch of people who are into this shit just to watch some fireworks, it's really hard to care. Because the fireworks, like when you're a kid, they're exciting, but it's the same shit every year. I don't get it, and I'm never drunk, so maybe that's the problem. Maybe you need to drink to enjoy that stuff, and also be less cynical, and then just not be prone to depression and bored with the world. I don't fucking know. Anyway, so maybe that's the last time I was competitive. I don't know. I don't think I did competitive stuff while I was depressed. My last depression. But when my cousin visited last year before the pandemic went nuts, she wanted to play games, and I had the Exploding Kittens on my shelf, and so we played that. And like, I'm trying not to crush my family at Exploding Kittens. I think it was my Japanese cousin, my mum, and maybe my brother. and me, and we're playing this game, and they're having fun. But here I am sitting here with the cards, trying not to be a psycho, but I can't help myself. And I'm like, okay, I know which cards I need to save to be able to win this, and I won every single game. And I just couldn't break out of that mode to like let anyone else win. And I just, yeah, no, it just like, even for my Japanese cousin who just is here for a good time, I don't think anyone minded, because I mean, at least my mum and my brother know I'm a psycho in that way. I don't know what my Japanese cousin thought, but she's very chill. um yeah, sitting around exploding kittens. I'm gonna fucking kill all of you. So yeah, if I ever see anyone in person, there's a handful of people who watch my channel who I could conceivably meet up with in real life. Yeah, let's not play any games. You don't need to see that side of me. And it's not fun for me. And if I am constantly like crushing everyone or just bringing that mood around, you're not gonna have fun. Or maybe you'll have fun and you'll all be drunk and making terrible moves, and I will be crushing you all. But that's still like, what's the point of that? So don't include me in your games and things. Um, but yeah, and I guess maybe part of it is because I'm also like that high achiever type. Like I used to get, oh fuck, I used to get 100% in some of my maths exams, especially early on when you're like in year 7 and it's really not that hard. And yeah, top of the class in 4 unit maths for Aussies who know what that is, or at least New South Wales. I don't know what it's like in other states. 4 unit maths is the highest level of maths you can do in high school, and yeah. And that was weird because I did better at the hard questions, but if it was an easy question, my brain would just like make dumb mistakes, and it puzzled the hell out of my teachers. Anyway, here I go bragging. But like, see, side note, let's go on a little tangent, is like, maybe this is the Aussie tall poppy thing or whatever, but when I did well when I was younger, people were like, oh, don't brag. So I got very, like, I just wouldn't celebrate my achievements, and maybe that wasn't helpful. Um, yeah, so stuff like that. So now as an adult, I can say whatever the fuck I want, and I don't give a shit about your opinions. So if you think I'm bragging, if you think I'm up myself, well, I probably am. Um, anyway, so yeah, maybe the high achieving thing is part of it. Don't remember where I was going with that, but like, look, I guess because I was good at games. So in primary school, I actually joined the chess team. My grandpa was into chess. I probably learned from him. Um, but the reason I joined the chess team was because I got wind that if you went to these after school events, they would feed you all these cookies, and I was just like, hell yeah, I'm down for the cookies. And we were all on the way to a game at some other school, and the mum who was driving us had this huge bag of cookies in the back seat, and we just like ate the whole thing on the way to the game, and we were so full of sugar. Oh dear, oh dear. So that was my motivation for joining the team. But of course, you do your practices at lunch, and then when there's a game day after school, you either they come to your school or you go to their school and you all play games. And the point is, like, you're supposed to win and you've got a team, and it was pretty obvious early on that I was the best player in the team because I'm a nerd. Um and so, like, I don't know what the other girls were thinking of this, but I was there to win, and I did not lose a single game. I had a few draws, maybe. I definitely had one stalemate. I'm sure I had others. Otherwise, I won, and maybe it's just like, I mean, partly being good at it, but partly also just like being like, I have to win, and that sort of focus that you get. Um, yeah, so that was me with chess. Then I think I quit when they brought in the timer thing, because like when you're a kid, they don't worry about the little timer thing. But when they brought that in, I think there was just a little bit too much pressure because I already put so much on that, winning the thing. Um, like I probably could have still done fine with the timer. It's just like one extra thing. And also I notice when I go into hobbies and stuff, I tend to like getting the surface detail. I'll learn the basics, but once you start bringing more shit into it, I'm like, I've already learned the main stuff that I wanted to know. I don't need to go any deeper. And usually, like once you've learned the main stuff, it gets boring. Like when I was into robotics, there was a point where I realized our AI was just not going to be what I hoped it would be, and especially not in my lifetime. So I thought, there's no point. Why am I here? So yeah, I'd take up a lot of hobbies and quit because I'd get to a point where I'm just like, well, I got what I wanted from this. I don't need any more. I don't need to go deeper. So I think chess is a bit like that. But I still played like with the family sometimes, and this is the same with Go. The Japanese Go game. Do you pronounce it Go? I don't know. No one's ever actually said the word to me. Who I could trust what their pronunciation was, but I would just call it Go. The Japanese game with the little black and white little pellets that you put on a grid. Yeah, I played them with like mum, and mum would just accuse me of cheating, and I'm like, how could I cheat? I'm just playing the game according to the rules. But it's because like I would just always win, and yeah, and see, being accused of cheating also makes you not want to play because like, why am I going to play you if you just like always accuse me of cheating? So I think she probably wasn't having fun with me going into like this, yeah, and then winning all the time, instead of just chilling out and just playing a game for what it is. So there's that as well. I think those are the main things. But so with this whiteboard that mum set up, like I think she knows, like I said I'm not playing, and then their family are talking about like, why not, la la la, and mum was like, it's because she can't stand to lose and all this kind of stuff, and I didn't say anything, but there's truth in that. So my family, at least my mum, has some clue that I'm this kind of psycho, like just have to win, otherwise. But like, and logically, I know that it doesn't matter because it's just a fucking game, but I cannot disconnect from that kind of thing. So with this game, this guessing game, right? I just, yeah, I didn't participate. So mum put X's in my whole column, and I'm watching it, but I'm also paying attention to the press conferences and the things they're saying and the things the news guys are saying and the analysts, and so picking up on things. And there were a couple of weeks where I did mention to the family, like, on the news they said this. So in the first week, my brother Dave, he put 99, and Gladys had just said we're expecting more than 100 tomorrow. So I'm like, why would you put 99? There are some that I wouldn't have picked. Like the second day on this one was 89, which was a lot lower than anyone thought. And mum, having the lowest guess, got that by default, but she was way off. But there was one I was able to help Dave with because he's like, I haven't won any. You watch all the things. Can you tell me like a tip and all that? And so I had been watching, and I don't think in the press conference there was anything, but on the ABC, one of the reporters was saying, oh, they are expecting higher numbers. And so I'm like, Dave, this is what they've said. And he almost blew it because like with these games, right, like it's going to be higher probably than anyone else's guess. And at the time, who was the highest? Dad was the highest on 105. My brother put in 114. I think that was a mistake. What you do is you look at the highest guess that anyone's done. You make sure you're the last person to guess, and then you just add a 1. So if he put 106, then anything above that, he would have won just by default, in the same way that mum won that second day, because anything below that number automatically goes into her range of things she can win. If you're in the middle, you only have a few numbers between the next person's guess on either side of you. But if it's going to be more than anyone else's guess, you just add 1, right? So there's weird little strategy things like that. And that's another thing I don't like about these guessing games is like, the last person to guess has an advantage, because if you think the number's going to be in the middle, that's trickier. But if you think it's going to be lower or higher than anyone else's guess, you just make sure yours is the lowest or highest by 1. You don't guess some huge number, because then you're leaving too much gap for the next person to possibly steal your win. So those strategy things that I think about, I'm just like, I I can't, I don't want to participate in that, because if I see someone putting their number in after me, or I have to wait for everyone, I do have the advantage of being like up late, but they could change it in the morning, and do I have to change my number if they change theirs? And um, just thinking the strategy is annoying. But what happened in the last week? Today is Sunday. I'm filming this on Sunday, but I won't get this up. It's like almost midnight. What I saw when I went to bed was Dad had 100 and Mum put Mikey as 101, which is going into that strategy, right? Like Mikey originally wasn't in this game, but apparently, when like she's got the carer, one of the carers in there, and apparently when they were putting down their guesses and Mum was explaining the game, Mikey was there and he wanted to be in on it, even though he doesn't understand what on earth is going on. So Mum reckons she's been talking to Mikey and sort of being like, "Do you think it's higher or lower? Do you think it's this number?" And sort of trying to take cues from him, going, "Hey." But this one to me looked like bullshit, because like Dad was the highest number at 100 and she put Mikey as 101. And I'm like, they've been doing all this extra testing in Southwest Sydney. We've seen queues of cars. There's definitely going to be more cases. So I was like, screw this. I rubbed out the X that Mum put for me and I put in 102. Because like Mikey's not like, if Mikey's gonna steal Dad's win, I'm gonna steal Mikey's win. And of course I won, because like here's me again, also only jumping in when I'm guaranteed the win, right? And now I have 100% success rate. Pfft, look at me and my huge fucking ego. That's another problem. I have that ego problem, which was probably like suppressed a little bit because of those kids in school who were like, you're bragging and the tall poppy thing. But that doesn't mean the ego's gone. It just means I've repressed the shit out of it. Maybe that's why my mind is like so crazy. You know, childhood issues, probably. Anyway, yeah, no, in the morning when I got up, Dad was like, "Oh, I saw what you did there," and I'm like, "Yeah, well, Mum's clearly trying to sabotage your wins." So, and Dad's like, "Yeah, I knew exactly what you were doing, and I told Mum," and all that kind of stuff. So at least they understand what I'm doing. And it's also important to me that they know that I'm not playing the game for real, because I don't know, it's just important to me for them to know that I'm not actually participating, I'm just screwing with them. See, there's like a lot of issues here that you could psychoanalyze on me. Um, yeah, so that's that game. And oh, with the bottom part, when lockdown will finish, I didn't actually write anything because, I'm just not participating. But Dave came along and wrote, "Never, I'm always at home." And I think that's fairly accurate, Even if lockdown finishes, where am I going to go? Really? Maybe I'll go back to work at the bonsai place. But otherwise, like, when gigs come back, it's just going to be sit down gigs. They'll have restrictions and then ears up, and like I can't do the sit down gig thing. I mean, it's hard enough that I don't really know any of the local bands at the moment, because the main ones I followed are mostly folded 5 years ago, around the same time I went on hiatus with my band. Um, so not knowing any of the songs doesn't, it makes it harder, but also, or like even the vibe, like there's a lot of metal in Sydney that I'm not actually into. People don't seem to do the styles that I like, which is annoying. But apart from that, like, I don't enjoy things just sitting around sipping. I mean, I guess everyone else has alcohol. I would only have soft drink because I don't drink. I don't drink alcohol. Weird the way words work. Anyway, so that's just not fun for me. And what am I gonna do? Talk when it's really loud? I don't think so. I'm not there to talk. I'm there for the music, right? So for me at a gig, I need to actually go up there and dance. Otherwise, what's the point? Get some exercise rocking out, make my neck sore and all that. Otherwise, I just struggle to see the point in going to a gig. Like, I know I should support other musicians, but in terms of me actually enjoying it, I need some action. I need to be doing something. I'm not good as an audience member. I need to be part of the action. And if I'm watching another band, that means rocking out. Like I don't do that for every band, but that's when I actually have fun, is if I'm rocking out, not if I'm standing around drinking, or drinking my Coca-Cola or water because I'm stingy, not standing around talking to people that I can barely hear anyway and have to go, what? 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 I'm sorry, I've got earplugs in, what? that's just not my idea of fun. So when lockdown ends, I'll just be at home anyway, which I've got a lot of practice in because I've had so much depression in my life. This is just normal. This is probably what, most of my life has been. And the times that I go out are the exceptions, at least post school, Um, yeah. So anyway, that was kind of amusing. Um, yeah. What else was there? I thought I had a thought. Like, see, this always happens. Did I have a thought and some other stuff I wanted to talk about? Uh, Maybe the politics thing. Because if you consider like if with the competitive thing, if the goal is to win, with politics and stuff and arguments. Oh, and not just politics. Like back when I used to talk about atheism, you come across people and they're trying to convert you, and you have an argument about religion. So religion and politics, and I guess just arguments in general. Let's not put a label on it. Let's just talk about arguments in general. I'm not a fan of them, and like it's stressful. But I do wonder if some of that ties into that sort of competitive trying to win thing, which you can't do because these people overwhelmingly, um, the usual problems with debate and whatever is people have already made up their mind. No one wants to budge. I don't want to budge. They don't want to budge. Well, if they're anything like me, they won't budge on the competitiveness. If they're not like me, they won't budge because they've just made up their mind, or because they're just stupid, or they haven't researched and they think they're smarter than they are, which is something that you come across a lot. Of course, caveat is everyone thinks they're smarter than everyone else, and here's me being a little bit up myself. But on some things, I would say I am smarter than a lot of other people, and so then it's frustrating because you get people, you write out a very detailed argument, and they come back with this most simplistic stuff, like a couple of words, and you're like, how am I supposed to argue with that? Like, you've given me nothing intelligent to deal with. It's just so that's one of those frustrations. I've managed to like cut that out, but when it comes to people who maybe have a little bit more substance to their arguments, it doesn't really improve those arguments. Like, it's just, there's no point to them. The only thing I would say is one of the things that kept me going with arguments for a while was that I knew other people were reading these things. And so maybe the main one that would have been is when I was on one of those asexual community pages and this whole thing blew up about trans, non-binary, whatever, and people were attacking me, even though like I had been supportive. I'd been like, look, it's gonna take a while to what was it? I think it was about they them pronouns, and I was trying to make the point that like at least this person is trying, even like it is hard for them, because they were making fun of this person for like, oh, it's hard for you, but what about us and the shit we have to go through? And I'm like, well, but they're making the effort, isn't that worth something? Something along those lines. And they full on attacked me for it, even though I was essentially on their side. I was just being like, hey, like, they'll get there. We just need to, like, this is educating. I'm not saying, I mean, at the time, I wasn't against any of that. Now I'm a bit more resistant, because if they're going to be dicks about it and impose it on people, fuck you, basically. But if you're going to be nice about it and be like, hey, I'd really prefer if you use these pronouns, I can deal with that. If you're going to be aggressive, no, fuck you. I'm just gonna, like, you're not even there when I'm talking about you, so what does it matter? Like, that kind of a thing. So they've actually pushed me in the opposite direction by being dickheads. But yeah, with that, I could have just walked away and not continued the argument, but I realized that there were people reading this and seeing what was happening to me and seeing I was being attacked unfairly for just having, like, for giving people time to adjust. Like, there's so many social things that have changed. Like, don't you people have grandparents and realize they grew up in a different time and it's gonna take some time to adjust? And so my arguing against these people, like, I knew that they were never going to change, but they would ask me, why are you still here? And I'm like, well, I'm here because I know other people are reading this and it may be helpful for other people to hear what I'm trying to say, and maybe they have a similar opinion but they're too scared to speak up. And I actually did get some comments back saying, yeah, this is exactly what it was. I was too scared to say this, but you've really helped me clear things up, and like, this is what I wanted to say, or else I was undecided, but you've raised some good points, and yeah, they are being unreasonable. And so that was more the benefit. It's not so much the person you're arguing with, it's the people watching it, and they're the ones who are like undecided, and they're the ones who are open to changing their minds, and that's where an argument or a debate is useful. It's not about you and them. But there's just a point where it's too much, Oh, why am I responsible for other people figuring out stuff? And I have to go through all this stress for a handful of people to get some benefit out of it, and I'm not getting any benefit out of it, so what's the point? And also, like, just the stress of dealing with people who are unreasonable, and yeah, it's just, why am I putting myself through this? The other thing is, it takes so much time. And then especially when they don't properly address your points, it's just like, why did I waste my time on this? Maybe there are people reading this who are getting something out of it, but they're not telling me. They're too scared to say anything most of the time. It's only a handful of people who actually publicly comment, a handful who might private message you, and then the rest are silent. And you kind of know they're there. Some of them will like your comments and just silently disappear. It's not enough for me to go through that. I've got other things to do with my life, and I do put time into thinking about what I'm going to write. People who've seen some of my Facebook rants that go on quite a while, that can take me a couple of hours to write, and I should really be doing other things. But once I'm there, and then I'll write it, and then I'll go back and read it and be like, oh shit, I didn't quite get that detail right, and change a few things. It takes a lot of time, and you just question, is it worth it? And, even when I've accepted the goal is not to win against someone, it's just to express what I think, and maybe other people get benefit out of it. Yeah, I hope that makes sense. I don't know if there's like some succinct way to make my point about that, but so some of that, I guess, if we're talking about competition, so some of that would be like that whole competitive nature and trying to win, but I guess with arguing, it goes into a few other issues, but it's like a component of stuff. A bit like with Mum's guessing game, competition is maybe one of the things, but also the nature of a numbers guessing game, and like the unfairness, because if you're the last person, you have the advantage, and which I exploited when I thought it would be fun to do so. But yeah, like if you're trying to take that sort of thing seriously, if you've ever seen Hard Quiz, when they have a stalemate with the last two, and so they do a tiebreaker and they ask a completely unrelated question and they have to guess whether, it's usually a number they have to guess. The first person is always at a disadvantage, I feel, because they come up with a number. The next person, they're usually not smart enough to do this, but the next person just needs to do that number +1 or -1, depending on whether they think it's higher or lower. And that they just have this huge chance of winning if they do it that way, instead of having like this huge gap and leaving this amount of space for the other person to get it instead of them. I just think those number guessing games are not well designed, maybe. So yeah, anyway. I guess you can tell from me just like talking about all this stuff, like, this is just a thing for me, and so it's better if I just avoid these things. And yeah, I'm avoiding the arguments as well now. I'm controlling who can see my Facebook a lot more strongly, and when I do go on a rant, I usually put a note at the end now saying, like, if you're going to say stuff, don't bother. And usually it's because what they're going to say is going to annoy me, but I also did one recently where the note I put was like, look, I've heard what you've all said on this topic, and I don't need you to repeat it because it's boring. So I'm not just deleting annoying comments, I'm deleting boring ones. I came to write something that I hadn't seen anyone else say, in my networks on Facebook. I'm aware of what everyone else is concerned about. I'm not entirely unsympathetic, but you just bore me, so don't leave those comments. I've reached that point where it's not just annoying, it's boring. Because, just with this lockdown, I don't want to talk about politics, but especially because I'm in those more creative circles, like the views people have are very predictable, and then a lot of them you can see that they haven't researched, and then I write stuff that I find quite normal because I listen to CoronaCast and stuff like that, and I pay attention to the press conferences and so on. And so when I talk about things like the Kappa variant, for example, a lot of people don't really know what the Kappa variant is. So when I write a thing and say, oh yeah, Melbourne with their Kappa variant and the crap support they got from the federal government, blah, 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 I think some people are like, wow, I didn't know that was a thing. And I'm just, yeah, I'm not seeing anyone else write the kinds of stuff that I'm writing. So that's what I'm doing. And yeah, there's plenty you can criticize, but I've already seen you people criticize that, so what's the point of just being repetitive? That's where I'm at now with that stuff. Anyway, yeah, so competition, I can't, I can't do it. And, what's the next sort of competition thing I have to do? Would probably be the audition. If Hello Scream goes ahead, I'll try and get into that, but, that is a different kettle of fish because yes, I want to get in, but it's also auditions are kind of terrifying, especially when you're surrounded by proper actors. And here I am, just random musician girl, done a few acting classes here and there, but was never good at it. So yeah, I can scare people, but if you want me to do like acting, if it's improv and it's in that audition setting, I'm probably going to freeze rather than do a good job of it, even if I could actually do the role well. That's a whole different issue with social anxiety and performance anxiety and just not knowing what I'm doing anxiety, and maybe intimidation. Anyway, so I've gone on a bit of tangents. The point of the video was competition. Competitive me is not someone you want to deal with, and the main time that's going to be a problem is if we're playing some kind of game. Best not to play competitive games with me. And this is one of, oh, I'm sorry, I've got a few more. Like, you know, the online games you can play, like online chess, for example, and online multiplayer games. I can't do those. I have to play against a computer. Losing to a computer is fine. Losing to a human, it's not going to happen. I'm just not going to play. And then, you know, especially online, opens you up to a lot of these psycho nerds who do nothing else with their life, and so of course you can't win. And then it's just not fun. At least with a computer, you know, you can set the difficulty, and once you've mastered a level and had fun mastering that level, you can move it up a notch. So it never gets too easy. There's still a challenge, but it's a challenge you can have a reasonable idea that you're going to overcome, rather than hitting up some random on the internet who has probably spent their entire life being a nerd on that one pursuit. That's not fun to me. So yeah, computer players. I think that's probably everything, and now I can go to bed and deal with my regular demons. Yeah, no, I was looking at DID YouTube's dramas because I've tried to avoid watching a lot of their videos, but yeah, I did watch some because I was like, I wonder if they would have anything helpful to say to me, but mostly nah. And then ended up stumbling onto dramas that I think mostly happened last year and got into some very strange places, and then yeah, it was just too much. I'm like, yep. This is another community that is just not for me. I think I'm just not a community person in general. I just, like, you know, I'm not good with people. I don't like a lot of people. And then you get into these communities where they're echo chambers and then they have their little dramas. And I don't understand why some drama happens. People just go nuts. I don't know. Maybe I'm just not a real person because I don't connect to a lot of, I guess, normal human stuff. To me, doesn't seem normal. Maybe I'm the only sane one and you're all crazy. I'm going to bed before I, like, ramble on more and get myself confused. And, yeah, psychology and things. Good night, guys.